John L. Scott Real Estate, and thanks for joining us here for our real estate show in our month of June. Well, you know, when you're a real estate broker, or the whole industry is just so fascinating and so large, you got to have professional organizations, and thank goodness they're here. The Rogue Valley Association of Realtors is one of them, and who better to talk about what they do and some of the interesting, well, just all sorts of interesting information we're going to have for you tonight. We welcome Tina Grimes, who's the Executive Director of Rogue Valley Association of Realtors and the Southern Oregon Multiple Listing Service, right? You got both those titles, right?
I do, yes.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have you here with us, along with Cerise Stevens, who is a real estate broker, and she's like the past president of the association. And she's crazy enough to do it again. She's going to be the president. She's also the president-elect. And Cerise, nice to have you here as well. People don't know that, Tina. You actually grew up in the Rogue Valley, didn't you?
Born and raised.
And tell us a little bit. Where was all that at?
I was born in the Ashland Community Hospital, and we lived here in Ashland until just before 6th grade, and then we moved to Jacksonville. And I graduated
and grew up
from
here. And you
North Medford High School.
You know, well, we always talk about cool stories, and Tina doesn't say these things, but you have a great story to tell because you started off 14 years ago as a bookkeeper at the association and stayed with it.
Yep.
And worked at it, got promoted, and became the executive director.
Yes.
I think that's a great story. Anyway,
yes.
so Cerise, I mean, she's pretty good at this. Is that right?
She's amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Now, Cerise, when I came to the Rogue Valley back in the day at Channel 5 and worked through, you actually had a restaurant.
I did.
In Ashland before you became a real estate broker.
Yes.
What was that?
The Alamo Grill.
Alamo
It was
Grill.
down on the plaza.
Down on the plaza. And how long did you do that?
About 2.5 years.
Yeah?
2.5 long years.
Yeah. Well, restaurants. I have a restaurant with my sister, and I know how hard that particular work is. You became a broker though in the kind of the mid '90s, and you've been at it a long time, and you've seen a lot of ups and downs. You've survived
19 years.
the market.
Yeah. We missed the old market that was just steadily rising, and everyone was having a good time. And now we're short of inventory, and prices are going up, and we don't want it to happen too fast this time around.
Well, it always concerns us. I was thinking because the market and people who watched the show before us saw some of the SOMLS stats that we show, which, you know, March, April, and May, you know, were the 3 busiest real estate months of the year, and they certainly were. What does that mean for like the association? Does that, I mean, you all are connected with it. Does that mean anything to you to have a market kind of like this, what's pretty robust and moving and kind of thing?
Well, yeah, because it means that more people are getting involved in the industry. We had 36 new members just last month alone. And, you know, what people may not realize is that real estate licensees are not necessarily realtors.
Right.
Being a realtor is a voluntary thing that a real estate licensee chooses to do. That means they're saying, I'm going to subscribe to a higher level. I'm going to abide by the code of ethics. I'm going to agree to a certain level of professionalism, something that a real estate licensee voluntarily chooses to do. And so we see this flood of new licensees coming in through the state being licensed, and then some of those choose to become realtors, and it can make things a little crazy. And
you're seeing a lot of it right now because of the market. I mean, but Cerise, we've seen that before, right? I mean, Joe and I became brokers in 2008, which our timing was not, was not very, very good. But we saw a lot of crazy things go on, as I'm sure you did too. So to me, I always give warning signs to know that things can happen again. And real estate is definitely a market-driven business all the way through. And when it blips and burps, we feel it along in the ripple effect across the whole industry.
It's really one of the last true market industries left in our economy.
Yeah, it's definitely economy driven because if they're building houses, that means all the home stores are doing business. If they're selling houses, that means they're putting up drapes, they're replacing carpet, they're painting, they're buying cars, they're buying their children things to play in the yard. So it's a real trickle-down effect. When homes are selling, economy starts picking up, jobs start increasing.
Well, we've also heard just from Brad Bennington and the shortage of workers we have in the construction trades here, and it's just kind of crazy, and yet as wild as it is, I mean, the market still continues to go. People want to move here, obviously, because we live in a great place. I just,
Yep.
as much as sometimes we think about that. Well, one of the things that the Rogue Valley Association of Realtors does and promotes, among many things, and we won't, I know we can't get to all of them or anything, or just tell our viewers some of them, but one of them that I'm interested in is an outreaching into the community more. I'm quite impressed, since I've been a real estate broker, about individuals and the generosity of brokers. Truly, I mean, it like any industry, it's cool. But you're trying something new with an outreach program. Tell me about what that is.
Well, we've just increased our committees. We now have an outreach committee, and they're just starting to meet and come up with what the needs are in the community. Homeless is definitely one of the needs, and then we are talking about the niche which that fits in. So of our homeless, which needs most attention? And we were discussing it today that pretty much after they're out of high school, whether they're going to college or not, sometimes they're involuntarily homeless and they've got nowhere to go. So we've got some good projects going on in this valley with Hearts with a Mission and also with the Maslow Project. So we're going to try to meet with them and focus in a little bit on that. Most of the real estate companies do their own community service day, or they do their collecting of food or collecting of clothes, or they do their own drives, and now we're doing it as realtors. So we're taking all of the resources that we have in our members and we're doing it that way.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting to see how it evolves and where that goes. But you are right, the individual offices generally do their own kinds of good works within the community, and they're done quietly and just goes. I know, like John L. Scott's got, they have the Earth Angels Foundation, actually. You know, that is just kind of, I guess, realtor given donated monies for different projects. So yeah, that's really good to hear out of this. One of the things that that I suppose you both have seen, especially since you're involved in the upper ends of things. You know, I'm just a little broker down here, and like you two are up here in the world of whatever this is. But changes in the industry. You talk a lot about that. That there's been, I think Tina says, what, more change in what?
There's been more change in the last 5 years than we saw in the previous 25 years all put together.
Okay.
Part of it due to the crash and the legislative responses to the crash, trying to correct it. Because as Cerise already touched on, the housing industry is a domino effect into the rest of our economy. And the housing industry has led our country out of recession and depression more times than any other industry.
Absolutely.
So a lot of legislative changes that happened trying to correct the crash of 2007/8. But some of it's technology driven. Realtors' roles have changed somewhat in that, you know, you're no longer the keeper of the information and the provider of the information. You're now the interpreter of the information.
That's a very big change, isn't it?
It is. It's a huge shift, and because the public can now access the information on their own.
Yeah, it's not that. Well, I suppose, Cerise, when you started, was it a book? I mean, it was like, I know my wife was a travel agent, you know, for many years.
That's
and
true.
I remember when they started, they would print the big, what called the World, whatever it was called. You know, had looked up airline schedules, this big thick books. Was that real estate was that way?
Real estate was that way.
It was still that way when I started the association too.
We'd get our book once a week.
That's not that long ago.
No.
Oh dear.
So we'd get our book once a week, and we'd go through and see all the new listings and look at the old ones and highlight and do this and do that. And then before you know it, when we had it on the computer, we'd get this little tiny printout of what it was. No pictures, no nothing. I can recall a time when I was selling a house to somebody that lived back in Michigan. And they said, well, can you do pictures yet? And we said, yeah, we think we can. And I took 6 pictures, and one of them actually got mailed. And now it's sky's the limit.
Totally different.
Sky's the limit.
Totally that's a good point. The public has access to everything. Everything that a real estate broker has access to, don't they? Through the SOMLS websites. And what you give that information, or someone buys that information, is that how it gets to Zillow and to Trulias and all these things, or how does, because that all of that information that the SOMLS collects, it goes where? I mean, what do you do with that?
Some of those are the brokers themselves saying, I'm going to send my information.
Okay.
In some cases, it has been the MLS. But one thing we're very conscious of is that it is not at the MLS, it's not our data. It's your data.
It's the broker's data.
It's the broker's data. And so in any case where we have provided information to one of those, we've tried to do it in such a way that we're just facilitating, and it's still the broker's choice whether or not they actually send their data there. So we've really taken the role of just being the facilitator, not the actual.
But most brokers, I mean, I would assume, want their information out to as many outlets as possible. Correct? I mean, isn't that?
Most do, but there are some that they just have a different business model, and it's working for them. So that's what they're going to stick with.
And technology changes. I mean, just think how just in the SOMLS changes that have come through, and I'm wondering where is there more coming down the pike? Because I mean, sometimes you get overwhelmed by it.
Well,
it's not being the thing about technology. Unlike the rest of the real estate business, the technology driving this business is not being like demanded by agents. It's being created by somebody else for agents to say, "Oh, here, isn't this wonderful?"
Giving them what they didn't know they needed.
Didn't even know you have it. And there's so much of it. That's my big complaint. Whether there's so much of it, and it's not, and nobody uses. I mean, it's not consistent, and it's just kind of a big hodgepodge of that.
And one of the benefits and good things about being a realtor is we get to watch what's coming down the pike in terms of the bills that are being passed by Congress and the legislative things that are coming about. And the more recent ones that keep popping up is doing away with the mortgage interest and the property tax interest as deductions. And so you're not just hiring a realtor to sell your house, you're hiring a realtor to watch out for property rights.
Private property rights.
Exactly. And that's really important, and not to get, left out that this is what's needed. For what's coming down. Because somebody may want to sell their house for sale by owner, but they don't know the legalities of it. They don't know what is there for them to use in terms of disclosures and so on. And people can get caught up in that, both as a buyer and as a seller. And before you know it, you end up in a court, and
And you don't want to end up there.
You
well,
don't.
we have two huge changes coming this summer that the general public is not going to necessarily be aware of the legalities surrounding it. One is on July 1st, with the Oregon recreational marijuana laws and how that will impact private property rights. And you're, buying and selling a home. There are going to be ramifications to that.
Now go down into renting a home and
all of that. Yeah, the property management aspect, exactly. And then on August 1st,
we really have some big changes coming, don't we?
We do, because then on August 1st, there's some lending law changes happening, which Guy, who was here earlier, I'm sure could address much better than I. But those are going to affect how transactions occur.
Have you been surprised? And the association, I know, doesn't get into specific things, but I've been talking about our rural properties here, and the demand for them continues to plummet. This 3-month period that we saw has been the biggest that I've ever seen in terms of numbers of properties exchanged and sold. Do you see? I see that continuing. I see real great pressure on rural properties, and I know the association doesn't get involved with specifics of any kind of that issues with that, but the GMO, the marijuana growing now, and vineyards. I mean, those are the big three things. Rural property is really changing a lot as well.
Well, it is, and you get certain homeowners who say, well, I want to sell my property, but I want to make sure they can never grow marijuana, and you can't.
Right.
You cannot do that. So again, it's educating the seller on what is legal and what is not legal.
Well, before we run out of time, I just want to mention 2 quick things. The Rogue Valley Association of Realtors offers mediation for disputes to try to settle real estate disputes. If people notice in your real estate documents there's always a section about you will go to dispute resolution before you go to court. You offer that. Do people take advantage of that? Is that something that people really do?
Yeah, so just to clarify, we can't do it if it's just between the buyer and the seller. There has to be a realtor involved in the dispute somehow.
A realtor has to be involved in the dispute before you, okay,
right.
Sure,
but,
that makes sense.
You know, whether it's between a realtor and one of their clients or the two realtors that are representing the two clients, whatever, yeah, we do have different levels of dispute resolution that we offer, and it's as a member benefit to the realtors.
And do people take advantage of it?
Yes.
So
Yes.
People do it.
Yes.
All right. And another thing I want to say, just for you, that the association, that one thing I've really noticed as a broker is the increase in classes, education classes that you're offering, a great variety, because it's such a crazy business that variety is probably a good thing in education, especially all these new agents that we're seeing, as you say.
Yeah, I have a member on an individual on my staff, and that is her entire job is just planning the education classes and implementing them and conducting them
and you give credit, of course, and you have to renew your license, so you have to have credits. Are brokers taking advantage of the variety from where you used to have?
Yes, we've seen a definite increase, not necessarily an increase in the individual class attendance, but an increase in the number of members that are coming to classes.
Cool. That's very good to know.
So,
our last thing before we get out of here is I know you want to talk about the Food and Wine Classic, which is RVAR's biggest event of the year, really, isn't it? I mean, you do a lot of different lunches.
Event.
It's a big event.
Yes.
So, first of all, it's held in March. Just tell people briefly what it is.
It's held in March. It'll be March 24th in 2016.
Okay.
And we do it at the Inn at the Commons. And it's where we have at least 16 different restaurants and 16 different wineries and breweries. And for $35 per person, you get to come in and enjoy samples from all of these restaurants and such. And then it's a fundraiser, and the fundraiser goes to the Oregon Association of Realtors Home Foundation. And what's so cool about this is Access is the one that facilitates the grants that are available to people who are either at or below the median income. They're $1,000 grants. It could be for down payment, it could be for repairs, it could be for, you know, whatever's necessary for it. And so what we do is we raise money, and the money that's raised here stays local in our community. In the last 5 years, next year will be number 6, we've raised over $100,000 for individual grants for people to get into homes.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty good.
It's amazing.
And have you given many grants away? I mean, do people take advantage? You know, so many times people don't take advantage of it. Are you seeing that?
Yeah, I think we're right. We're like 59 different grants have been given out so far.
$1,000 each. So you have more money that's actually.
Oh, there's more
that's
that's available.
Away.
Absolutely.
So tell me again. So you have to be
at or below the median income. And that's the median income. I believe it's in Oregon, not just the county.
I'm trying to think of. I wish I knew what that was right off my head, but I can't think of what that.
I want to say it's in the 50,000 range, if I remember correctly.
I'm not remembering.
But $1,000. Okay, so you can be used as a down payment.
Can be used for
repairs,
closing costs. And it's not just for first-time home buyers, which is unique to our grant, because so many of the grants are just for first-time home buyers. This grant is for anyone purchasing a home that is below the median income and meets a couple of other qualifications.
Now the event, I have to say I've never been to the event because I've been ghosting.
Well, you should, and it's open to the public as
well. It is. I know it is. But it's always at the same time as the NCAA basketball tournament for me. So this is beside the point. I will come to. I promise. But how do you get the restaurants? I mean, are they local?
Right now,
can our restaurant, like my sisters in Klamath Falls, come and join this too?
Absolutely.
And do those kind of things? Okay.
All they have to do is apply for it, and we are accepting applications right now for restaurants, wineries, breweries. Even last year we had a professional tea service. So, you know, we're not just limited to alcohol if somebody wants to do it. And we had many different restaurants last year. So we are accepting applications, and it's a wonderful event. We have a silent auction. We have a live auction.
And how many people attend it? How many people attend?
Well, it pretty much sells out.
Yeah, it's the last 2 years it's sold out at 350 people.
Really?
Yeah.
That's that's pretty good. That's a great fundraising event.
And it's fun, and people dress up, and it's a great time.
And if they're interested, they can go to, we do have a website specifically for that event. It's just roguevalleyfoodandwineclassic.com. type it all out, and there's pictures from last year. There's information for the restaurants about and breweries and wineries about next year. So all that's there on the website.
Yeah. So as we end tonight, I just want to give Cerise a shout out here because you know, I was like Rotary president for a year, and you do one thing for a year when you do something, and then you fade into the sunset and become an elder. Cerise is coming back to be president again of RVAR, and I just want to say to you, first, not that you're crazy or anything, but you must enjoy that and care enough about it to do it again. And so thank you for that, because that's a lot of work to do that.
I do, and I got to tell you, with Tina's staff, it's easy.
It makes it worth it then.
It makes it worth it.
Well,
it really does. We have great members, members.
And how many people actually, people don't even know this, at the association and all the things that go on, how many people do you have working there, Tina? I don't really even know myself.
So we have 2 offices. We have one here in Medford, and then we have one in Grants Pass.
That's right.
Between the 2 offices, I have 8 staff, including myself.
Okay.
That's for both the association and the MLS. And then we have 9. We're just right at 1,000 members right now.
And you're funded how? I mean, tell people how do you fund all of this?
For the association, it's through annual dues primarily, and then we have some other non-dues revenue sources that we're expanding so that we don't have to rely so much on the dues.
Yeah.
And for the MLS, it is a subscription service, so that's monthly fees.
The monthly fees come in to pay that. And that's where all that information goes that you come in and do. Well, it's an interesting time right now is in the month of June, isn't it, in 2015? From the association standpoint, you got a lot going on. Cerise, from just a realtor standpoint, a market standpoint, it's a lot going on.
Busy.
I hope we survive this summer. I hope we get some rain and it's not too crazy in the weather. So, but people will enjoy coming here. We're going to have a good tourist year. It's going to be a continuing market that's going to continue to be robust. So thank you for being here, and we'll talk to you later. And good luck to you both. That'll do it for the Real Estate Show for our June show of 2015. A big thanks to our student crew here at SOU for their support of tonight's program. Without them, we couldn't do the shows at all. Don't forget, Joe and I are available as well. We have, of course, our Real Estate Show on radio. Let me just go over these real quick with you. Don't forget, you can listen to us on KMED, AM and FM, as well as, of course, here at AM 1440 and FM 106.7. Well, I guess that's all we're going to have. I guess we're just going to stop there, and we'll see you next month here on RVTV. I'm Pete Belcastro. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your evening.